start recording right now.
Perfect.
Yes. And all right,
Awesome.
yeah, you can go ahead and start whenever you're ready.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks for having me on, Anthony, and everyone on the team. I'm really excited to be here. I got all of y'all's questions and I compiled them and made a deck to go through. But anytime, let me know if you have any other questions in the chat. And at the end, we can have some more time for Q&A. So I kind of titled it Adventures in UX, but it's really an AMA. And I sectioned all y'all's questions in like working in UX, giving some insights on day-to-day life. Other people I collaborate with, I actually work with a lot of engineers and researchers, and also getting into UX, some actionable tips you can take away. Fun fact is I never studied design. I never majored in it. My background's actually in bio and computer engineering. And I self-taught my way in a lot of networking, a lot of interesting actionable tips I can give in like life. And I got some questions like finding balance, and we'll end up with a Q&A as well. Yeah, feel free to turn your camera if you want. Would love to see y'all as well. So right now, yeah, I'm mostly doing product UX design at EA, focusing specifically on marketing and events. I work on specifically EA Creator Network and EA Events. So a lot of stuff with the creator economy and scaling brand partnerships and working with content creators. I also founded Design Buddies. Feel free to join, link in the chat. It was this random project, a random Discord server I made when I was a student, and it blew up. And that taught me that I can just make anything. I don't need to ask anyone for permission, just do whatever I want to do. And yeah, I recently graduated with a master's in computer science and engineering at SCU. And because before I want to go into game programming actually, but I'll get more in that later. I'm originally from California, born and raised in the San Francisco Bay Area or San Jose. And on top of all of that, I also like to draw, make 3D art, run a lot, and do a lot of social media content creation. So a bit by background, when I was growing up, I wanted to be an anime artist. I really liked Pokemon and games and MapleStory. And I was never really vibing with school just because I liked learning, but I hated how we had to think inside a box and take exams, because for me, like, I felt like I had to follow the specific set of instructions in order to get good grades, and I was rewarded for that. And I just didn't really vibe with it. I just kind of like to just think outside the box and make my own path and stuff. And let me know if you can resonate with that as well. That's why I just didn't like vibe with it. But when I was in high school, I was an avid cross country and track runner. And I like made it to nationals a couple of times, and it was a really big part of my life. And that's inspired my undergrad major as bioengineering, and I was pre-med. I wanted to learn how to biohack myself to run faster. That was the main reason why I did bioengineering, specifically interested in changing my DNA. And I did research in gene therapy because I wanted to know how to turn on certain genes to make more like energy in the cells and stuff. So I thought that was really cool. But my favorite part of working in the lab was actually taking photos of the cells I was using, and overlaying and taking selfies, like cells, but selfie, haha, so fun. That was my favorite part. And I knew my bioengineering experience is basically like repeating a bunch of experiments over and over again, changing one small variable until some things work. And I didn't really like it because I couldn't really see the impact on my work, but I really like taking the cool photos and later doing the post-processing in Photoshop. So I knew I was in the wrong path. So this was my freshman, sophomore year of college. And then we had this VR lab open up at my school. And that's how I decided to just kind of pivot over to the games industry. I watched a lot of online YouTube tutorials to learn how to make games. And I realized that like, even though I was still a bioengineering major, I'm not like, when I came to college, I had this mindset. I'm like, oh, I must be my major. Like I have to like follow my major 100%. And let me know if you can relate to this in the chat as well. But having the internet and having this resource to like learn other things and all these online tutorials to learn how to make games, I realized that like I'm not bound to my major. Like, yeah, I might be bioengineering, but I can still be a game designer. I can still make games and stuff. And so I learned how to use Unreal and the Unity and made a game. My first game, I can share a case study in the chat. It's called Selfie because I loved biology. Like I just like am such a big fan of it, just because I think it's so cool. And I want to like gamify learning in biology, make it more fun and interesting. And so that's a plan. It's a game how you learn photosynthesis in VR. And I did all like most of the 3D art as well and learned Unreal that way. And then later I decided to pivot over to game development in computer science. That's why it was actually my minor and then later my master's degree. One of my internships was I interned at Intuitive Surgical, which is a company that makes robotic surgery. And I was a virtual reality robotic surgery game developer intern. So most of this was focused on development. I would say like 80% of my internship was like trying to build programs in Unity and testing them and bit part of that. But my favorite part of that internship was level design. And also some of the user research. So I tested a lot with surgeons and learned about the pain points they were facing when they're undergoing surgery. I thought that was so cool. I really like laying out the levels and stuff. And so I decided to pivot over to level design and then more UI UX and product design. And the reason why I decided to go into like more general UI UX and product design, but still in the games industry, is because I found a lot of jobs in that and I kind of just enjoyed it, but I have no idea what I want to do long term yet. So I'm still figuring it out as I go. So this is definitely an iterative process. Along the way, I really like social media and blogging. So I've been putting myself on the internet since I was in high school and just talking about life and running and art and random things, never really niching myself in any way. So just creating content for fun. I also started an art business. I used to table at anime conventions and make merch. And then I randomly started a community called Design Buddies. And in 2 years, we have almost 44,000 members on Discord now. So it's been really exciting and learned a lot through just like experimenting and never really focused on one thing. I've always felt like a jack of all trades, master of some, I don't know what, none, and just keep vibing in life. So that's a bit of my background. And so I will go through some of the questions that I got in the Google Forms. And if anytime you have questions, feel free to submit them in the chat. Me over here trying to have my entire, that's how I felt as well in college. Like, I felt like I had to have everything figured out and I realized I had nothing figured out. I pivoted so many times. I always felt like a beginner on a lot of things. But it's okay. It's everyone has their own journey and I learned to like not compare myself to other people. Yeah, just keep vibing. I use vibe a lot, like, but random aside, but like at work, I call design reviews vibe checks with stakeholders to make sure I'm designing the right thing, make sure they're vibing, even yeah. So I like vibe a lot. I usually use wholesome, and I call my Jira tickets design quest. So that's kind of a taste of how it's like in the gaming industry. All these sounds vibe and yeah. So let's pivot over to like work in UX or more like vibing in UX. So a bit about what I specifically do. I feel like UX design is basically just solving problems, but solving problems objectively. So about taking into account like the user needs, business goals, and technical constraints. So I partner very closely with user researchers, product managers, business partners, and engineer leads. Gonna change, yeah, vibe check. Yeah. And I also contribute a lot to product strategy. So kind of like the end-to-end process, not just like getting requirements and then designing it, but also in the beginning stages of the project and shaping out how we're going to strategize, what is the outcome and like what is success metrics we want to track with that. Also translating research insights into design solutions. So I partner really closely with user researchers to help define like pain points and how we can turn these like pain points into design solutions with that. And really just making everything objective, making sure you're solving problems. That's what I would say like the main difference between design and art is more like an expression of self, but design is like solving problems in an objective form. So I just take these insights into that. And I also help out like specifically like creating workshops to help uncover problems and user flows, wireframes, mockups in Figma, prototypes, lots of documentation. So it's a bit all over the place. I feel like I feel like being a designer or like working in product in tech is kind of like a huge group project and everyone has their own specialties, but everyone just like works together to build something. It's kind of like school in that way a little bit in product development. So that's kind of what I do. And yeah, for a product team, typically who I collaborate most with is other designers, product managers, product leads, engineers, developers, and quality assurance, user researchers, and other business partners that help define like, what are we trying to solve? How do we measure success? Is this the right solution? Are the users vibing with it? Is everyone vibing with it? Are the leadership gonna vibe with it? And so that's just how I like who I mostly vibe check with. I love it. I just started saying vibes, but yes, these are my vibe partners. And so a little bit about my experience at EA specifically. I started at EA in June of 2020 as an intern. Fun fact, I actually never applied. I cold reached out to the director of my team on LinkedIn and asked him about his design career, and it turned into an internship. And so sometimes you just gotta network, and sometimes there's jobs out there that they don't have job descriptions out. So that's what I did. But it was a long process. I sent 400 connection requests to get to that one. Yes. So that's how I got in. I didn't have, like, I was actually, when I was applying to my first design internships, I was automatically rejected by a lot of systems just because I don't have that design background in my education, I feel. And sometimes I just got ghosted by a ton of people. So I just went ahead and networked. So I just specifically, I searched senior managers and directors on LinkedIn, filtered by company and location, and like added all of them. Because the reason why I did that instead of recruiters is that senior designers and directors often make the final decision in hiring. So that's like a life hack for y'all if you're looking for internships or jobs and stuff, is to hit up them senior directors and senior managers and directors, or senior directors as well. Yeah, so at EA, I started on the experience design team under the technology branch. So I don't actually work on games, but I work on a lot of products that cover a lot of players and stuff. So like EA Help. And so I have a case study on my portfolio where you can check out. That's what I did for my first ever UX design internships. I redesigned EA Help, and I mostly worked on player and employee help products, a lot of smaller products as well. But the one I showed in my portfolio is the one I specifically was my first ever design project at EA. Oh, thank you. And then full time. So full-time was interesting. Like, I feel like I got a lot more responsibilities, and I later just like tried to choose the high impact products I want to work on. And I learned that getting promoted has to do with how much impact you make. So that looks like driving the business more revenue, saving people more time. And so I decided, when I first started full-time, I was actually on enterprise products, on like employee experience products. But the reason why I decided to stay at EA is the flexibility I had. And so, for example, when I started full time, I wasn't like I thought the products I was working on was interesting. I was still learning, but things were moving a bit slow, and I was more interested in like the marketing consumer side. So I talked to my director, and I was like, yeah, I'm more interested in like that side. And the next week I was on a new team. So that happened really fast. I feel like it's not always easy to pivot at large companies, but because I had a director who really was supportive of my interests and career growth, I was able to like pivot so fast just because I spoke up. And I realized that like, if you never ask, then you never get it. And so that's how I just know how to ask what you want in life as well. In just to make sure, like, because it's you're with the company is also paying you, but you're also should be working on things you like to work on as well. That's how I feel. And as full-time, I'm working directly with product and engineering. For example, like in my internship, I was mostly working closely with a design lead and going through design, and then the design lead would collaborate with product engineering. But as full-time, I'm now working directly with them, the other more stakeholders, instead of going through another level, because I become the design lead of like different products and stuff. So and also help build design systems on the side, building a lot of graphic and visual design assets and stuff. And yeah, and right now I'm working on my promotion to become a senior designer. So that's really exciting. And I was able to just like take it all in and just try to make more impact and like have visibility and network within the company to help, because like ultimately like how promotions work is it's also about like who you know. And that's how I post on LinkedIn so much, because a lot of the people, like the VPs making these decisions to promote someone, it's they're the ones doing it. So I just try to like post on LinkedIn a lot. So that's another like life tip for y'all once you get in, foot in the door a little bit. It's specifically products I work on are EA Creator Network. And check this out. This is launched. I'm leading the Creator Hub, the creator facing side. So we partner with all like content creators, Twitch streamers, artists, photographers, and helping them get paid. EA events, so scaling event creation, and where EA Play is hosted. Design systems. In the past, I've worked on our global game store, and I also designed some deck templates used by the entire technology organization. Oh yeah, thank you. Yeah, I like posting on LinkedIn a lot. Yeah, I think it's fun, but it also helps me like get visibility in the higher ups because that's where they hang out.
Grace, a question about those LinkedIn posts. Like, where do you get the ideas of like what to post? Like, and how do you know what's, you know, too much posting or not enough posting?
Yeah, great question. So before I was intimidated on LinkedIn, and just because I feel like everyone was kind of just like flexing their accomplishments, and I felt like a small potato. And I was just like, LinkedIn's such, at least for me, like I never saw myself as like fitting the mold of what it traditionally means to be quote unquote professional. I've always like was a bit more playful and so I used to feel intimidated on LinkedIn. And then I randomly decided to start posting my art and posting about like my learnings in life. And those posts like got a lot of engagement. So these days I just kind of post whatever I'm thinking of. Like for example, if I drew something, I'm proud of it, I post it. If I went to a cool meetup, I post about it. If I learned something from my job or learned something for a project, I post about it. If I also even post about my running adventures. So I kind of treat it like a blog these days, and I seem to have a lot of success with it. And I do that because I don't really like being labeled as like just a designer. I like to share like everything. And I feel like even though LinkedIn is traditionally like a professional platform, I feel like I like to challenge professionalism in like a way that we don't have to be fit in a box. And that's why I do that. Because I also like, I do that also because I want to encourage other people to like not feel like they have to fit in a mold or like change themselves in order to fit into some kind of certain industry and stuff. So yeah, and then I like doing it because I get to meet a lot of other people too along the way. Like LinkedIn's like my favorite social media platform.
And that professional disrupting is where all the vibes come from, right? All the vibing terminology in your teams.
Yeah, I used to just like not like, I like when I was like in college, I used to think like working in tech is like, oh, you gotta wear like formal clothes, you can only talk about the weather, you can't talk about anything else, that's all. And I was just like, yo, this is not a vibe, so I'm just gonna like just be myself, and whoever like likes it can vibe, and whoever doesn't like it, that's okay. So yeah, and I realized that like most people, everyone's like human in industry as well. People like it. And even though, so yeah, I feel like that worked really well as well. Cause like when I'm like more chill, people are more chill around me too. Yeah, like let me know if you all make LinkedIn posts. Would love to follow along with y'all's content. LinkedIn's fun. It's where a lot of people making hiring decisions and promotion decisions also hang out. So there's that too. That's why I like LinkedIn too. And also where a lot of cool people hang out as well. Weather content. Yeah, I feel like when it comes to like, I'm excited to announce posts, I personally like them. I personally, for me, I like to share like my learnings and how I got there. For example, like I just got an offer, but here's like my process. Here's like what the struggles I overcame. I feel like those posts are the most helpful and also inspirational to people who might be struggling in their job hunt or something. So that's what I found most helpful, like sharing learning, sharing like some struggles and what I learned from that and how I overcame that is what I found most engaging and most impact I feel like making on LinkedIn. Yeah, just looking at the chat. Yeah. But it is definitely, I feel like a muscle I had to build because these days I try to post like 2 or 3 times a week. Before I used to post like once a week, but now I just like, sometimes I just like post about my art and just like whatever I'm working on as well. Because it helps me build like a personal brand, which in turn led to a lot of speaking engagements. Like I'm actually speaking at Adobe Max in a few weeks. So because they found me on LinkedIn. Not 2 to 3 times a day. I've seen people post about post 2 to 3 times a day, but I see like their engagement kind of go down, but also depends on what you're posting about. Oh, Michael said, I could not be more honored to announce that I've overcome last evening's surprising humidity and now overseeing a transition to upcoming code for. That's hilarious. Like, I would love to see that content on LinkedIn. I just love like that.
Man, getting a little bit off track here, but there was like in one of my other Slacks, like this someone like made an announcement, and I guess in like the replies to that announcement, everybody was putting like these really cringy LinkedIn replies, like making fun of LinkedIn replies, like so excited to see where you're going. Oh wow, really great. Like
Wait, there's a LinkedIn post generator, and it's like I saw. I need to share that. I need to find it and share in the chat afterwards. It's hilarious.
I'll look for it. I'll look for it.
Yeah.
I think the question that Anthony asked earlier about like kind of how to avoid making bad posts on LinkedIn is, I think, what people kind of have a fear about. Like I've seen on my timeline on LinkedIn, people post like what I would consider kind of cringy stuff, like, oh, just a reminder to go outside every day, and then it's like a picture of like them just like at a park bench, and like you can like sometimes it seems forced. So like, how do you kind of make sure that you're not at least like seeming forced when you do those posts and offering a genuine connection to whoever is on your timeline or connected with you?
That's a great question. I've seen posts like that too. I've also seen that like crying CEO post who posted, I don't know if y'all saw it. That one's hella cringe. Like he like posted pictures of him crying after like laying on the floor. So yeah, so I feel like for me, I try to just post whatever I'm thinking of and not worry about the external factors. Like I actually don't scroll on LinkedIn too much just because I like to spend time like making sure it doesn't like influence what I share online as well. And I feel like if I don't have anything interesting to post, I just don't post. And so I don't post just to post, but I post because I want to share something. Does that help?
Yeah.
Yeah,
How do you feel about like devlogs and stuff like that on LinkedIn? Is that like just people aren't interested in your technical process, or is that something that you think is actually worth doing?
Yeah, I think it'd be interesting because I've seen people post about also like something that I'm trying to start as well is like day in the life as a designer and like what kind of how I think of how I approach my work, because people on LinkedIn are also looking for content to help them in their career as well. So I feel like sharing information like in your field in development would help a lot too.
Yeah,
And help people like, learn more.
something like one of my favorite posts was like, hey, I'm designing an FPS and this is a problem that every FPS designer has to solve that I never knew about until I tried to come across it, and then this is how I solved it. I find those really helpful.
Yeah, so like I guess how I approach LinkedIn is like taking inspiration from whichever content I find helpful and trying to structure my content in that way. So I create content that I would personally enjoy too or find value of. Like for example, I posted a picture of a park bench and saying like go outside. Like I personally wouldn't enjoy that because I feel like it's like kind of generic. So I wouldn't post about that. So I just do my like vibe check on it. If I like it, then I post on it. It's not something like I could really quantify since I feel like it depends a lot. But I feel like for ground rules, it's like if I would like it, if I find value of it, I would post it.
Sweet, thanks.
Yeah, you're welcome. I saw a quick question. I'm just kind of taking questions as we go. I do have a deck prepared with the rest that we all submitted. But yeah, happy to do any structure that y'all find was helpful.
I saw Chris had a question earlier. I'm trying to see what the other questions are.
Yeah, I'm scrolling up as well.
Chat's definitely gotten a little bit chaotic.
Oh yeah, no, it's all good.
As always.
I like this. I like it interacted this way. So I don't feel like
yeah.
I'm just lecturing. Yeah. Oh, there's a question about I wonder how to combat introversion while networking and posting on LinkedIn. That's a great question. So I feel like yeah, I struggled a lot with it in the past. Then I realized, well, I feel like I feel like I flip-flop between like an introvert and extrovert a lot. So it really depends on the day, I feel. But I feel like talking in text form helps a lot for me personally. Instead of like hopping on a call with like 30 different people. I don't know, like, and also like I feel like finding balance. And for example, I don't have to post 2 or 3 times a week the whole year. There could be times where I take time off and not really, I guess, kind of not setting strict expectations for myself. So I just kind of treat LinkedIn as something I do for fun. And I can, if I don't have anything interesting to post, I won't post at all. And I won't like be mad at myself if I don't. If I'm feeling like too drained, I just wouldn't post. And I feel like also with like introversion, I used to feel the need to reply to everything right away. But sometimes I get like hundreds of messages, and lowering my expectations and taking my time to reply and knowing that other people are not going to be mad also helps, because like I don't get mad if someone takes like a week to reply. So I just try to not push that expectation among myself. Does that help?
Yeah, I was just kind of wondering about that because sometimes with social media I feel pressure to like post every day, kind of like Instagram or whatnot. But I guess I'm not really familiar with the algorithm of LinkedIn because it functions a bit differently than Instagram, but it's kind of like a more professional social media in a sense.
Yeah, Instagram's interesting because like when I have like 7 different Instagram accounts, what I did notice, if I don't post for a while, the algorithm does not like me anymore, which I think it's not that great. But on LinkedIn, I haven't really experienced that. I feel like LinkedIn's algorithm is really random. It's like depends on who engages with your post within the first few hours, and it'll bump it to their feed too. But I try not to think about the algorithm too much, because at least for me, it was easy to get wrapped up in all the stats and making sure I'm always like improving. And then that to me lost the fun in the process. I feel like for me, focusing too much on metrics made me focus too much on the outcome. And I feel like what I learned most is the journey to get there. And so I just try not to think about it and just post whatever makes me happy. If it works well, that's cool. And then I find the next thing that works well. So I like having that mindset personally helped me a lot more than being too stressed about the algorithm or the metrics.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Thanks very much for that
Yeah.
advice.
Yeah, no problem.
I also had a similar like concern as what Christopher said in chat, where it's just like I feel like I don't have much relevant experience on my resume as to what, you know, like game design and all that. But and in that sense, it feels a little scary to even try and or think about like posting on LinkedIn where like your contemporaries or just people who you would expect to see it, like, or the people who you'd want to see it would think it's like, you know, really small potatoes and like relatively very simple stuff. And so do you think like, I guess I should like wait until I feel like I'm doing stuff that's more worthwhile, or just start posting and then, you know, see what comes of it?
Yeah, I think you should start posting. I feel like for me, I used to feel like I had to wait until I like had a full-time job. But I feel like a lot of students in your position would find your experience valuable as well, and relatable, and help them connect with you more too. And when I was a student, I just shared what I was learning and what I was working on. And like if I took like a cool class, I'll be like, oh, this is cool. This is what I learned. Is anyone else interested in this or something? I would just like post my school projects, my drawings and stuff. So like not always related to work, but I feel like as a student, I feel like it was valuable for me as a student to see other students sharing their experiences, because I could relate to them and learn from them as well.
Yeah, because I already see like some of my like the kids that I like knew in high school, like connecting with them, seeing them go the very stereotypical like LinkedIn, like, oh, so excited to see what you're doing. It's like I would feel so like out of place just posting like a blog update or whatnot. But you know, it's scary because you know, it's like LinkedIn, it feels like a very different culture and whatnot.
I think something that I've experienced with LinkedIn too is that it's really easy to learn like the formula of what makes a good looking LinkedIn post, or something that sounds like a good LinkedIn post. You know, like there's like the buzzwords, right, that you can use to make it sound like whatever you're talking about is like maybe more impactful than it really is. And there's a lot of people who just learn how to use the buzzwords and then make other people like yourself or like me who like, oh, they're my age and they're doing way more impactful things, but in reality they're kind of just using buzzwords. So like careful to like not let the buzzwords and like the hacks who are the people who are hacking the algorithm like get you down, and just kind of focus on your own path.
Yeah, I agree. It's so easy to get wrapped up in like what other people are doing and then lose track of what you want to do in your life too. And I feel like just finding that balance of just like trying not to compare myself with other people, but also sharing my experiences so other people can benefit from it too, is one thing that I'm like constantly iterating. Oh yeah, definitely post about the game jam. Yeah, if you have any like game jam projects or things you learned from a game jam, that's a good post.
I love game jams from the itchy.io. Although like I find myself of less stress if I do like a month-long game jam than a weekend, but the weekend can be pretty fun. Weekend game jams.
Yeah. Oh, lots of great questions in the chat. I'm trying to see if I can answer all of them. I also have a couple of more slides, but these questions are not on the slides. Yeah, thank you. If you don't mind me asking, what was the process of growing design buddies and keeping members motivated to interact? Yeah, that's a great question. I feel like it just comes down to not being afraid to change and try new things. And so I feel like it comes down to focusing on the journey instead of the outcome. For design buddies, I never expected it to have that many members. I just kind of tested out a lot of different things. For example, having different moderators on our team, testing out different types of events, event formats, event topics. We also hosted a game jam, design jams, different partnerships and sponsorships with other companies. And so these days, and also like taking in feedback and knowing what problem we're solving. For example, at Design Buddies, we realized that there's a lot of junior designers and it's hard for them to find a role because there's not a lot of companies hiring junior designers. And we want to help give them content in order to help them stand out, like educational content, design challenges, so they can have something on their portfolio, and then kind of going about that. And constantly like asking questions, collecting data, and seeing which events are most engaging and how might we bring more of that, or like what made it engaging and how can we bring more of that content, and going from that as well. And not being afraid to pivot as well. And yeah, so these days we've kind of evolved into, our mission used to be kind of over the place, but having a strong mission is also good to set a foundation and some ground rules of what y'all be pivoting towards. Like for us, our mission is to help designers level up in their design career. So we do this by providing events, mentorships, resources, free content for them to benefit from. And we also monetize through B2B. And so we worked with a lot of companies like Adobe, Figma, Editor X, a lot of Discord, a lot of companies because they also reach out to design buddies because they want to hire and promote their products. And we don't want to charge any students accessing resources. So the companies have the big monies. So it's like a really fruitful partnership where like both sides benefit. So we try to look for that as well. Definitely learned so much along the way. And also with management and having people on your team that share the same vision as you, it's really important too. And try to have people, for me, I learned to have people who are more experienced than I am. And so on our team, we have like design directors, UX leads, and other industries too that helped design buddies along the way. So I'm learning from them too. And I feel like having hard conversations and letting people go who don't add value or take away value from your team is also something I learned too. Yeah, so it's kind of over the place, but a lot of experimenting and figuring out like why people engage and tapping into that.
Yeah, I'll make sure to keep that in mind. It's I'm just really amazed with how big your server has grown. It's a lot of members.
Thank you. I also encourage people to share design buddies with their friends too. So that helps a lot. Because we don't do any marketing. We never done any paid ads. We just try to ask people to share with their friends, and that helps too. Word of mouth mostly. And
Organic
also
growth.
partnering with big companies, giving us some social status there too, but also resources. Cool. Yeah, thanks everyone. I think I will move on to also like feel free to drop any questions. I'll have more time for Q&A at the end, but I'll address some of the questions that I've gotten in the Google Sheet as well. So landing a job, oh wait, it's strange. Don't know what happened to that slide, but here it is, landing a job without a design degree. I don't know what happened here, but basically how I was able to build my portfolio without studying design in school is I volunteered a lot actually, and that helped me get a lot of experience in real world projects, later putting them on my portfolio. I also did a lot of design-a-thons, hackathons, game jams. Those are great opportunities to learn how to work with a team and also build products. And I also just design stuff just for fun. And I also ask a lot for feedback to make sure I'm going the right direction. So I have a lot of mentors that help me out along the way. And most important, well, not, I feel like these are all equally important, but networking and social media and standing out. And so just brief product and UX design interview tips. So typically there are a couple of types of interviews. Like behavioral is common for all types of roles. I would also just create a doc of frequently asked questions. Like, for example, tell me about yourself. What was the biggest struggles and what did you learn from it? And yeah, and try to like tie in like the company culture, company values, like look at their about site and just like match some stuff with your experiences too. And also we also have like a portfolio review. That's just like pretty common amongst all like creative type interviews, and just making sure that the problem you're trying to solve and decision and steps you went to solve that is clear. And an app critique, sometimes you'll be asked like critique an app. So that's when you'll talk about the business goals and user needs and like justify why they made certain decisions to hit on those. And design challenges like this, I feel like this is getting less and less common, but for example, the Google UX design internship interview, the process had a design challenge, but I just Googled UX design internship interview and I got a lot of people posting their design challenges on there. So that's like a life hack. Thank you. Just Google what other people have done and see like what worked in their favor too. Yeah, for portfolio tips, there's some questions I got in portfolio. I feel like when I first saw a portfolio, I was like kind of intimidated. Seems like a lot, but I feel like it just comes down to having a landing page and having some case studies and having an about page. So like 3 things. And you can also like, if you have other hobbies, you can also have like a playground section and like an about page, media blog and more. I can also show an example of my portfolio too. And for case studies, it's important to just like make sure your process and decision making, how you solve the problem is clear. So having like a clear beginning, middle, and end in your process and like why you did different things. And also sometimes you like to have consistent, sometimes it's like fun to have like consistent branding, like colors and typography with your site and your resume to help you stand out, express yourself as well. I could also, I know we have like 15 minutes left, so I could just drop the link to my portfolio in the chat where you can look through. I also have, this is actually like an updated portfolio of mine, just to quickly walk through some examples. This is not public, this is my PDF portfolio. The portfolio on my site has not been updated since 2020, but a quick way to whip up one is having a PDF portfolio. Oh yeah, I can share these slides after Zoom, but I won't share my portfolio though, my recent portfolio though, just because these projects are still work in progress. But basically I just have a brief overview like about me. Each section has a project. I talked about my role, what I specifically did on it, overview of like what was the product, and like what I specifically worked on, and just like the process of how we got to where we are, and just a little bit more about what I've did as well. So this is just like a quick MVP portfolio I did. They also have like, yeah, this is another project. I also talked about some other smaller stuff as well, and like what I did and some visuals to stand out. And yeah, and so about life, I feel like got a question about finding balance. For me, how I was before, especially as a college student, I used to think like my work is my identity, and I realized how toxic that mindset was. So I learned to really remove my identity from my work, because I feel like a lot of designers, they struggle with taking feedback personally. And I started just to remove myself from that. So how I did that was just enjoying the process, because oftentimes the outcome you won't have control of, because in life, there's always going to be other stakeholders like business partners, technical feasibility, timeline, roadmap stuff that you can't control. And so it's like, so I just focus on like what I've learned from designing the product instead of like what the outcome was. And so that's what I gained from it. And also just having non-work related hobbies and goals. Like I love to run, draw, social media, not related to design at all. And just having a balanced life and just vibing with everything. As well, setting boundaries. I used to not be good at this. Like, for example, I would get pinged at like 9 p.m. and like feel like I have to reply. But now I just like mute my Slack and like mute my Outlook. So highly recommend that. Also try new things. Like I struggled with this before because I didn't like to feel like a beginner at things, but I realized everyone starts somewhere. It's always like an opportunity to learn. Sometimes the value is just learning and having fun and not always having to be number one at everything. And just having more fun. Don't take everything so seriously. Like life doesn't have to be so serious. I feel sometimes you just need to vibe and just have fun, enjoy life instead of like worrying about having to be the top or like having to do everything. Yeah, I was also a former people pleaser. I found that if I don't take care of myself first, I feel like without my health, I can't do anything else. So priority is health. Make sure you sleep well, live a healthy life, because like if you don't have health, you have nothing. Health is wealth. And that's how I learned to just live more happy and balanced, like mental and physical health, and prioritizing both of them equally. And yeah, so these are some of my social media. I think we have some more time for a Q&A. I know we got a lot, and I'll try to look at the chat and see any I missed. But definitely feel free to connect with me on any of my social media platforms and join Design Buddies if you'd like. And feel free to unmute yourself if you have questions too.
Yeah, we have like 15 minutes, so we have plenty of time.
This has been really insightful so far as well. Thank you. Like, let's see.
Yeah, it was fun. Lots of great questions too. Yeah, boundaries. I definitely agree with boundaries. I feel like my life kind of became better once I started defining these boundaries.
We definitely have, oh, I'm sorry. We have that big library of questions that I think a lot of our members asked beforehand. Tony, do you?
True.
Or
Very true.
A lot of it was covered in the slides.
Gotcha.
I sent those questions to Grace. Yes.
That makes sense.
On the topic of boundaries, because you're just bringing it up, you mentioned declaring like the boundaries and stuff like that. How did you go about that? You know, like declaring boundaries to someone in a position above you, like kind of in a way that you know, is respectful, but also you know, like saying, you know, if I get pinged outside of this amount of time, like, I'll have to wait until the next business day to work. Because
Yeah.
I personally struggle with that a little bit, getting pinged at 9 p.m. and stuff like that. It's like, oh, okay.
Yeah, great question. Like at least for my team, we did like a team warm session, or just make it clear like what your core hours are. For example, my core hours are 7 to 3, just because I have 7 a.m. meetings and I like to end my work at 3 Pacific time. So now that like my whole team knows my core work hours, they can't expect a response at 4 p.m. So just like saying core work hours instead of like, hey, I won't reply to you if you text me at like 6 p.m. or something.
How did they react to that if they had like prior expectations that you were like this really active, you know, midnight person?
Great question. Yeah, because I was that. For me, like at least at EA, I can't speak for other teams and companies. No one really expects me to be on at night. In fact, my director encourages me to not respond at night. And I feel like that might be rare across the industry too, because a lot of my experience has to do with a director that really cares about mental health. Like, for example, we don't have meetings on Fridays, no meetings at all. And then we're encouraged to take another Friday off if we have Monday off. So, but for me, I still had to, with the other product teams I work in, I work with a lot of teams in India, and that's why I have these 7 a.m. meetings, is I just try to meet them earlier in the day. And if they have, I also try to communicate expectations. Like, for example, if they want me to do something, they would have to let me know as soon as possible, not just like the day of before. Like, I can't just drop everything in and help you, because even though you had this thing going on for a month, but didn't tell me before. So just like sharing like my core work hours, and also setting expectations of like, hey, you have to let me know as early as possible. But there are some exceptions though, like if you're launching something, like, yeah, I do help. Sometimes I work overtime or work more hours that day to help out as well. But so I guess it really depends on the situation. But if it's not urgent, then try to establish that clear boundary from the beginning. And I feel like if you have a manager that makes you work overtime, that is kind of, in my opinion, hella sus. And, and I think it might be time to find a new manager. Yeah.
Yeah. That makes sense. That makes sense.
No, definitely. Thank you for that. That was very insightful. It's more of like, definitely like people who have different schedules. Like I personally like wake up a different time, and then the person I collaborate with on a project works in the morning. I kind of work in the afternoon, and then I'll get like the pings like in the middle of the night. And yeah, I guess kind of establishing a time for communication and collaboration would help most of that. So thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, same as me. All the most of the engineers I work with are all in India. So it's the opposite of my time zone. But I made it work.
Regarding design buddies, do you and your like administrative team in there get compensated? Is it a nonprofit? How do you manage that exactly, like financially?
Yeah, it's a nonprofit. So we mainly like we're still trying to formulate into like a official one. So it's a nonprofit, and we monetize through partnering with brands mostly. We have tried a lot of different things on the B2C realm, so like merch, premium memberships, educational programs, and we have found much more success in partnering with brands because they have the big monies.
That makes sense. That makes sense. That money, do you salary yourself to some extent? I'm curious, like, how does that work?
Yeah, right now everything goes back into the business, because we still want to scale to like real life events and chapters and stuff. So everything goes back into the business right now. In the future, maybe. I don't think I ever want to do Design Buddies full time though. That's the reason why I made it a nonprofit, is we have like a new team, a new board every so often, so we can keep it going for the next 1,000 years or so.
Right. And then the last question is, you talked about learning to like let people go that don't add value to it, and like, can you talk more about that?
Yeah, there's
that's really hard to do if like someone, you've been like paying them or working with them, or like, have you been paying them? That's
Yeah, that's a great question. So this story led to someone trying to cancel me, but led to actually Design Buddies in my favor. So it's actually kind of funny. So no, this is something that's gonna go in my book one day. This is something I don't mind sharing, just because it's also all public as well. So for a while, like my experience in design, but I didn't have that much experience managing teams. And so my level of measuring success in a team is how active they were on Discord, not their ability, but just by activity. And I would pick teammates that way. And for a while, we had 3 people who so they would ban people for disagreeing with them, ban people for like clown reacting to their posts, ban people for asking questions that they didn't like, publicly shaming people for posting in the wrong channel. And they would get caught up in so many issues. So I would call them virtue signaling a lot. Like they gaslit me because I didn't know much about DEI stuff. Like I do agree, like it has a place, but we tried doing more DEI events, but they just got 10% of the engagement as like our normal design events. And they were just like creating a whole fuss of it. And so they were like really disrespectful for me, disrespectful to other teammates, creating this environment where internally and externally people felt afraid to be themselves around them, which I felt like was a big problem because I want everyone just to vibe, and they were ruining that vibe. Yeah, typical Discord mod. Yes, if you like, it's like typical Discord Reddit mod who would just like power trip on people. So they were power tripping essentially. And me being the person I am, I hate drama. Like I just think it's a waste of time. Like I'd rather spend my time doing something else. So I didn't address it early on, which is the mistake I made. I waited till it became really bad. And one day I started just like giving them less and less responsibilities because I wanted to like weed them out. And I was really nervous about telling them no. So I wrote a whole draft message kicking them out. And then when I was on vacation on a cruise in Alaska with no Wi-Fi, they wrote a post pinging everyone saying that they're stepping down from the team, but yet they want to become like an advisor or whatever. But yet they're concerned about the direction the community is heading. But here, my socials, go follow me. That post is still out there in Design Buddies, and I feel like that's just like one of the biggest lessons I learned from community building is to identify these red flags, identify like having expectations, knowing like who is power tripping, how power tripping looks like, and the importance of having a space where internally and externally, like your team and the community members feel comfortable being themselves. So I'm really grateful that happened because that's how we got our new team. A lot of people saw that post and reached out to me in support. And so of our leadership team now, we have former directors of nonprofits like AIGA, senior managers, directors, UX leads from companies. So we have a much more experienced team now just because of that post. It really surfaced a lot of like the internal issues we were struggling with. And so I'm so grateful that these 3 people existed in my life because they've taught me a lot. Yeah, so it was hard because at first I was like, damn, this is sus. But then I started to realize like, oh, this is actually good because I was trying to get them to leave anyway. So I'm like, thank you for leaving. And making it so public. And I didn't get any hate from it, which just from those 3 people who like just didn't see eye to eye. And these things were going on for like a year or so. I just didn't me being the like non-drama person I am, I just like didn't want to take time to address it, which I feel like I should have looking back early on. But yeah, it's interesting. I feel like in terms of like weeding people out, like I feel like I like to give people second chances and benefit of the doubt. And so I see red flags as like people who are not receptive to feedback, people who like to push their own agenda without that much data to back that up. Because like they would ban people for talking about politics in China or something, even though it was like completely objective. So just like random things like that.
That's really no, they're not. I'm just like, I'm curious, like do you have like so among the new team, like after learning these lessons, did you like, if you're a nonprofit, then you have bylaws probably that like codify your directorship process and proceedings. So do you have like a vote kick system? Like what do you do? I'm curious.
Yeah, we have a vote kick system, and also a system that like protects people from, like we have like metrics that determine like who is the director, like they should be like experienced, they should have experience in the industry at least. And so things like that are like codified and baked into Design Buddies, so we won't run into these issues again. And one mistake I made before is not having clear expectations. I just kind of did it for fun and let people do it. Yeah. Oh, I see the chat. Yeah. No, like let me know if you want to chat more on this. I love like talking about management stuff.
I would love to. I would love to.
Yeah. I can share my message. I can share a draft of like what I was drafting out to kick them out. So in my message, I mainly focused on So this is our engagement rate before you came on. This is our engagement rate after a year, after you've been practicing your moderation. There's a 68% drop in engagement, and this is why you're out. So focusing on objective data and justifying why they should be out is what helped me. So they don't take it as a personal attack. I just use data because people can't argue with data. And that's also happening with like, even as a designer, like convincing people, this is what the data says. Let's do that because the data, not because I want to, but the data shows that your actions have led to this.
Looks like Brian's got a question as well.
Yeah, I was just wondering if your question was answered, Michael. So I'm just trying to be patient.
I'm sad. Yeah, no, that was awesome. Thank you so much, Grace. It's just, and I want for everyone that's like in DevLUp, I'm just curious. Like we're not booting people out. I'm just like, I'm trying to learn because it's some of the hardest things to do by far. Like, how do you, I think it's really, really hard to say, to like ask someone out, like,
Yeah, especially I feel like I consider a lot of these people as friends before. And sometimes things don't work out, but that's okay. We always have a lot of other friends too.
Yeah.
And people learn and grow and change. Sometimes it might not work in the moment, it might work future.
Makes sense.
So how about we get to Brian's question and then Vivency's question, that the really good question in the chat too. And then that might be our time.
Yeah, sounds good.
Yeah, I guess like this is more of like almost server related, but kind of like management. So like when you're working with like a team or like in a server, like how do you go about like managing stuff, whether it's like managing the Discord, so there's no like useless channels, and how do you like make sure things are basically things are actually working instead of just like being slowed down and whatnot? Because I don't know, it's kind of like I guess because like the lack of interactivity is main concern, not just for like club servers, but like if you're working like with a team and whatnot.
Yeah, for design buddies, in terms of like the server, we use the Discord stats, so we just see which servers are getting the least amount of clicks and engagement and chopping those off. In terms of our team, we started, I can show you our org chart, that might help. We started just by like seeing MVP. Let me open that up. That will give more. Let me see. Yes, I can share this. So,
how are they voted?
Oh, Discord channel activity status. Oh, it's Discord stats. It's inside Discord itself. Yeah. But for our org chart, we mainly focus on like, what is MVP design buddies? So for nonprofit, we needed 3 officers and some expectations. And then for board of directors, we decided to choose like events and public relations, Discord admin and community, social media communication, and mentorship, because those are like the 4 pillars that make up design buddies. And it looks different for every organization, but I would determine these 3 and then what main pillars or areas, and then going down from there. Like for leads, like we have like PR communications, PR strategy, different opportunities like volunteering and stuff. So just starting from like a top level and breaking it down and seeing what people like and placing people where their expertise at is how we structured our team.
Yeah, I'll make sure. Make sure to keep that in mind. I see Michael's giving me advice because I'm still have a lot to learn about Discord, to be honest. Because it's really helpful. It's just managing it is just not something I'm really used to in a sense.
Yeah, it's inside your server settings. It's like server insights.
All right. Yeah, that answered my question. Many thanks.
Yeah, no problem. So Vinci asks, question UI UX design, having trouble right now getting a job in the same field. Friends suggest me to start learning front end or coding. Google. Oh, add valid coding. Oh, that's a great question, because I feel like a big question is like, do designers need to code? I would say it depends. I can only speak from my experiences, but I don't code at all in my job, and I was never asked about that in my interview process. At EA at least, and also like a lot of other companies, a lot of hiring managers don't expect designers to code, but it does help. Because my background is in computer science, it has helped me when I work with engineers and measuring or defining like technical feasibility stuff. But a lot of designers who don't have a coding background learn it on the job too. I do know some startups who are smaller companies, they might be looking for more like hybrid design engineers But for larger companies, the roles become more specialized and they don't. So I would say it depends in terms of coding. But I would focus, if your interest is like in UI UX product, I would focus on that because I feel like learning coding as well, it's just, I feel like if I were in your shoes, I would feel overwhelmed.
Okay, so that about wraps us up here. This was really great, Grace. This was awesome. A really great interactive
Thank
session.
you so much.
Yeah,
Yeah,
a
this
lot
was
of great
fun.
info.
Lots of great questions and conversation and vibes. Good vibes.
Thank you so much.
Oh wait, I think Chris has a question. I don't know if you have enough time, to be honest.
Yeah, sometime. Should we post updates on on unfinished projects on LinkedIn? Yeah, I do that. Sometimes I post like work in progresses. I don't really have like, I feel like there's no like right or wrong way to do things. As long as like I feel like I'm giving value and I'm vibing with it, it's fine. But then I just do it for fun. So I like, it's not like my full-time job, so it's different. But yeah, I wouldn't like I wouldn't mind seeing unfinished projects on LinkedIn. I feel like maybe talking about your process and how you got to where you are and like what you learned from that project is something that would be of value to people viewing your post too. The vibey vibes, yes. Thank you. Yeah, lots of good vibes.
Thank you so much, Grace. We really appreciate it. We'll maybe post this recording on our YouTube channel in like a couple of days, but that's awesome. Thank you.
Also,
Yeah.
I'm gonna drop your socials again here in the chat. In
Thank
case
you.
anybody.
Like,
I'll make sure to share it with you in case you want to post in Design Buddies, and yeah, I might reach out to you for like management tips. That's so cool that we
yeah,
know
like
you.
I would also like to also connect for management tips as well, since I never expected to kind of work with management, but I feel like I kind of have to. But like it's a new experience, but like it's a lot of fun. It's kind of fun, but also a bit stressful if I
Yeah.
don't know what we're doing.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. I feel like my biggest struggle with management is knowing when to delegate and knowing when to let things go. It's kind of like trading wheel. Is like you kind of guide someone through and you see how they do it and then see if they can just take it from there. It is iterative though. It's like a whole process of like trust building, knowing people, knowing their goals, knowing their intentions, and just kind of vibing along and seeing and just like it's like a puzzle and iterating from there. And yeah, not being able to change. But yeah, management's a huge thing that I've been learned and still am learning a lot too. It is a good skill to have though, because like I'm so happy I'm having these experiences now because if I were ever in the management position at like a large company, I would have that experience I could tap from. So I feel like what y'all are doing now, especially as college students and learning these management tips, is going to be super valuable in your career. So I know there's a lot of politics and stuff in all organizations. That's how humans work. But it'll help a lot in that too. So glad y'all are thinking about it now.
Thank you,
Oh,
Grace.
Yeah, no problem.
Thank
This
you
is
for your
fun.
vibes.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
And thanks for everybody for coming too. This is
Yes,
great
yeah.
turnout.
Yeah.
Yep.
Right.
See ya.
Bye
Guess
guys.
Bye everyone. Nice to meet y'all.
Bye.
Thank
you.
you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Nice to meet you.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye bye.